I think I start the session. Okay. So, very good morning to all of you. Today, first of all, myself, Professor S.K. Sinha, Chaudhary Ranveer Singh University, Jind. I'm second meter. The program is sponsored to Rishabh. So first of all, I introduce and unfortunately उसका डेथ हो गया किसी कारणवश। और जब वो उम्र में था तब काफी वो एजुकेशन के प्रति उसकी काफी झुकाव थी। 6th क्लास तक उसने एजुकेशन ली थी और 6th क्लास तक वो पूरे ही एजुकेशन में अपने 6th क्लास तक पूरे स्कूल में ऑलवेज उसका आउटस्टैंडिंग। तो मैंने प्लान किया कि मैं उसके नाम पर एक बनूंगा जिसकी का पर्पस होगा सोसाइटी के जो वीकर सेक्शन है, सोसाइटी में जो बेस्ट क्लास हैं, वहां तक मैं एजुकेशन पहुंचाऊंगा। और भी कई उसकी विजन और एजेंडा है, उसके बेसिस पर काम करना। ये पहला प्रोग्राम हम क्या है इस कोर्स का करंट वर्किंग एज हेड ऑफ now is LM. In Indian and international journals.
हेलो मैम, सर को कहो एक बार ना नेटवर्क इशू हो रहा है बहुत ज़्यादा। हेलो मैम, सर को कहो कि नेटवर्क इशू हो रहा है, वीडियो बंद करके बोलें। आवाज़ नहीं आ रही मैम, यहाँ पे रुका हुआ है सर का।
Conduct a smart place he has business research education. Presently he active YouTube where he has 780 plus video with the approx 30,000 plus subscriber and 1.5 million. So once again I heartily welcome कारिस्मेटोलॉजी में एक अपना वजूद है, नाम है। इनके नाम पर मैं कहीं भी बात करता हूँ तो कहता है सर तो ज्वाइन करेंगे। मैं ये बताऊँ 1900 स्टूडेंट हुए हैं, दोनों रखा और का नाम है और इसीलिए सारे लोग हैं जो आप सुनना चाहते हैं। तो उन्होंने टॉप सेशन है। फर्स्ट सेशन इज 10 to 11:30 and 2 to 1:30। आज और कल भी सेम लाइन पर कंडक्ट किया जाएगा। आपसे इनका सिंपल वर्कशॉप का टाइटल है इंट्रोडक्शन टू रिसर्च। लोग करें ऑब्जेक्टिव ले, इसका क्या होगा, कहीं कोई में नहीं होता। तो पहले टॉपिक बहुत ही फिट होगा जो भी पार्टिसिपेंट इससे जुड़े। वंस अगेन ऑर्गेनाइजर को स्थापित करते हैं कि उन्होंने काफी मशक्कत करके ये काम किया है। डॉक्टर नीरज कौशिक को रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा। थैंक यू वेरी मच। जी सर।
Thank you, Professor Sinha. Thanks for the kind words and the introduction to the Rishabh Education Society. You're doing really a great job, a very novel job, sir. So, hats off to you. Good morning, everyone. Hope I am audible because there seems to be some audio or sound issue or network issue at my end too. Though Professor Sinha has already briefed about this workshop, let me tell you 3-4 things once again. So first, let me appoint a monitor in my class so that whenever there is any problem, the monitor can tell me. So wonderful to see so many people, old friends, and almost I know almost all of you from many times. So let me appoint Arun Kumar Dubey. Arun, am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are there, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes.
So Arun, whenever there is any audio problem, please do report.
Yes, sir.
You
yes.
know me very well, Arun. Whenever I am very fast, please interrupt on behalf of all the participants. If anything is not clear, please interrupt anytime.
Yes, sir. I will do. Thank you, sir. I'm on it.
I request all the participants to use the chat box only and only for the query. Please don't write any good morning, happy to see you, or any other thing. Absolutely nothing. Use it only and only for your query. So if any query is there, because when I start the session, one limitation in Google Meet, whoever is the presenter, that person cannot see the chat. So actually, I won't see the screen also. That's a limitation. Screen means I won't be able to see all of you. So when you write anything in the chat, Arun will speak up, Arun will interrupt me and will ask that question. Session, Professor Sinha has already told, it's a 4-session workshop, 10 to 11:30. Then there's a tea break or coffee break, whatever you prefer. Help yourself at your home. And then second session is from 12 to 1:30, today and tomorrow. But if there are any queries, I will be happy to answer those queries even after the workshop. The purpose of keeping the free workshop was that there must be a research culture where you can ask anything. I don't guarantee that I know all the answers, but somewhere answers are there. If I don't know, then together we will search for the answers. There are so wonderful people here. My seniors are there. So we will trouble them. There are better resource persons who are present at audience here. So we'll trouble them. But together we will shoot every of your query, all of your queries. So please feel free to ask any query, any number of times you can ask that. In online workshops, internet is often a problem because you may be at an area where signal problem is there, or I may be at an area. So don't worry, this will be recorded and will be kept there on the YouTube. The presentation which I will use, I will share with you. Needless to say, that is already available. Actually, the lecture which I will discuss today, we have purposefully not given any of the contents. So it's a very open-ended introduction to the research. So what exactly we will discuss, let's see that. But this is a level 1 workshop where we'll talk about the very basics, very fundamental. So just to get an idea, we will not discuss any of the software, neither Excel nor SPSS, Amos, Smart PLS, RStudio. I'm not going to touch any one of them. I'm going to discuss about the fundamentals, what exactly is the research. And believe me, research is very similar to marriage. So just like, you always there in a relation, even unmarried people are there in the relation with family, mother, father, so many other people are there. Likewise is this relation. this research is there. Unfortunately, now research becomes synonymous with the two things. One, it becomes synonymous with the data analysis. And almost 70 to 80% of the workshop that's happening around, they focus on any tool. They focus on AMOS, Smart PLS, SPSS, NVivo, or any other software. Very few workshops or sessions are there on basics. It's not like resource person don't know that, but the problem is when we say let's talk about the basics, very few people turn up because everybody believes this we all know. We know all these things, you just tell us which buttons to press. Now fortunately we have YouTube. You write any technique, there will be 100 videos explaining probably in your language, and that's not an issue. But when you start writing about the papers or your thesis, the things are very different. You find that data analysis is hardly 10 to 15% of the entire work. It's much more than that. Much more than that. So allow me to start with my presentation. My presentation is about research. I'm sharing the screen. So, Arun, please tell me when the screen is visible.
Yes, yes, the screen is visible, sir. You may start.
Thank you. So we'll start about the research, and the moment we say let's start with the research, people put their specs on, they become very attentive, they take a copy in the pen, and they become very serious, like we are, somewhere we have kept the research is always for very serious people. But let's address the child within you. Each one of us has a child within us, and this child says, can't we have some fun? Can't we enjoy this research? Why all these lectures?
So your screen sharing is stopped. I think Divya Eshwani, she has started sharing.
Okay, let me share it again. Please check now.
Yes, sir. It is visible. Yes.
Okay. So let me change my title of this, not the research, rather research is fun. And we can start with a smile. So at least I have put a picture of mine, at least I am smiling. People in the start of the session often smile. And at the end when we say, okay, please come for a photo session, they try to smile. So your age was 2 hours on this planet. When your age was 2 hours, what you are doing? So obviously you are not crying or something, you are sleeping. Because that birth process is a very traumatized experience for a baby, and baby, both for mother as well as baby, and baby just, they go through that fatigue and they sleep. But something very strange happens in those first initial hours or even before the birth of the baby. And the first thing is you got a name. Isn't it very surprising that we human beings, whenever we encounter with the first reaction when we encounter with anything is we try to give a name. So when a hurricane starts, so we say what is the name of that hurricane? When a virus comes up and disturbs all the lives of all the people in the planet, we say what is the name of that virus? Whenever we find a new star in the galaxy, we name it. Oh, by the way, do you know there are so many stars in the galaxy that practically our all names are exhausted. Now we name them as KS13579. We name them numbers, but all the names are almost over. So first thing is, yeah, there are some of you who had really very intelligent parents, and it must have taken or might have taken 1 week or 1 month for giving the name, but most of us got a name in the first hour or even before the birth. And then the second thing is, we are born in a family. Every kid is born in a family, and the moment you are born, much of your life is decided. I won't say everything is decided, but a parameter is set. Who is your father, mother, grandparents, circumstances, economic, social conditions. So many things are automatically there. You know, there is always a baby is born, but we give a name, and more than the name, we give a surname also. And you don't have a choice in the surname. A name you can have a choice, but you have absolutely no choice in your surname. The moment you get a surname, much of the things are automatically fixed for you in your life. Okay, don't worry, we will get back to the research also. Let's first enjoy our life once again. Let's retrospect our life once again. The second thing, what was the syllabus for the first 5 years? I don't know whether you have noted it or not, but we all the people, just like we say, there is a child in every person. I find there is a teacher in every person too. All of us are born teachers, and we love to teach other. We love to tell other. Every single time we find a child, just see what you are doing. You just enjoy and then you start teaching, whatever. Whatever you feel is deemed for that child, you start teaching that child. So what was the syllabus for the first 5 years? And don't tell me you are taught about ABCD. You know, disturbed childhood. Not like ABCD, what was the syllabus? What you got? So something very important lessons in your life you got in the first year, that was to speak, to stand, to walk. Okay, so all these things were very, very important. And then for the first 3-4 years, all you are taught was relation. So how you are related to somebody. And it's just terrific to know, and it's very complex for a kid to understand the relation. That father, first thing is, it comes as a bombshell to the kids when they first learn that mummy and papa also have their mummy and papa. It's a very strange thing. I don't know what was your reaction when you first discovered that your mom also has a mom. It's beyond their comprehension. That mom and father, papa and mummy are supreme. How can they also have a papa and mummy? And then you don't call them as simply grandparent. Particularly in an Indian subcontinent, we have a culture of calling every single relation, there is a name. So there is a difference between Dada and Nana. And again, it's very confusing for the kid. How you decide who's Dada, who's Nana? And particularly if you are from towards West Bengal, then Dada becomes your elder brother also. So it's all so confusing. Now, why I am taking you to the childhood? Because my point is, research is just the replica of human life. If we understand the human life, we will understand research better. I was just discussing with one of my friends 2 days back, and we just concluded that for the most of the people, research means it's a burden. Research means publication. Research means take a paper, call that as the base paper, and try to do the same thing whatever that person has done. Somebody has done a study in Canada, so let me do it in India. And we find that is a research. To most of the people, research is like finding a black cat in a dark room with the eyes folded. So you have absolutely no idea what we will do. And that this happens because maybe somewhere in the process, till PG, there is not a great research exposure. And then suddenly when you become a pre-PhD student, we believe that you must be knowing all these things. So what is the right way then to approach the research? Well, I don't claim I am an authority, but since I have been teaching this subject from the 23 years, I get a little insight, and the same I'm sharing with you. The first thing is, please believe research is very, very simple. It's a very common sense sort of thing. And whenever you are not getting anything, try to see what is happening in the human life. What we are doing in the human life, the thing will happen in the research. So in the human life, we have at the center a person, and here we have at the center as a variable. So first thing we do with a human being, we give a name. Not only human being, with any concept, we always give a name. So variable also will be having a name. So variables, like human beings, they never live alone. Like we live in a family, so our variables also live in a family. We have the relation, our variables also have the relation, they also live in a family. So for this particular hour, my request will be, please try to conceptualize a variable as a person. I don't know if someone has had the music lesson or not, but I'm a music lover and I learned some instruments. When I was learning classical music, so in the classical music, it's all about the rag, etc. And, when we were playing the rag, it was not getting on the correct way. So I remember my music teacher told me that Neeraj, every rag in our culture, we believe every rag got a devta. Every rag is alive, just like a person. It's not simply a piece of some sound notes. No. He said, imagine it's a person, and the moment you hit a bad, note, that particular deity is hit. It's just, conceptualize it. That particular rag is a person. And then you will never ever play a wrong note. Because if my finger will, that will stop going to the wrong note because the other person will be hit. A similar thing I asked you to conceptualize a variable as a person. Just think of variable, and we will do the first exercise with that. Variables are just like the people. So they also if I go to Arun's family, so certainly there will be certain people. He will introduce, is my father, my mother, my wife, my kids, my siblings, my uncle, aunt. This is what we expect. Likewise, if I go to a relation, it is not possible that particular variable. If I go to a variable will not be living alone. So just conceptualize, there is a variable called motivation. So if I go to the home of motivation, I want to meet motivation. So like Arun, motivation will also say, okay, please meet. This is my friend leadership. Because leadership causes motivation. They are related. Then on the other side, on the sofa, you will find performance is sitting because motivation has an effect on performance. Then something organization politics. So motivation would like to stay away from the politics because more will be the politics, it will have an effect on the motivation also. So all of these things are variable. If it's not clear to you what is a variable, let's even go back to the very old time. Let's go back something, let's sit in our time machine and let's go back to something like 10,000 BC. Now, what the human beings were doing, 10,000 BC, certainly they were the human beings. And there were no PhD, there were no college, there were no the school or the university. I think they were very happy people. So all they were doing is eating, sleeping, praying, go for the hunting, enjoy your life. Okay, just like all the animals, still they are enjoying their life. So just think of the first person who said, there is a day and there is a night. There is such a happy life. I have never seen dogs or birds or somebody saying, now it's 4 p.m. Now it's time to go to that particular street and park. Now it's time to do. No, they're just natural. They behave themselves. So when the first person said, this is a day, this is a night. Well, it's nothing strange thing. All the living beings, I think they know this is a day, this is night. There is the importance of sun in our life. But going further, calling, there is a week. Now, this is something unique. I doubt whether any other species have a concept of week. 7 days is a week. Then month, fortnight, half yearly. And then the concept of leap year, that's really fantastic. So if you sometimes study the history of time, you will find that all the month which we refer today have a history. Whether it's August is there, whether July is there, September, October, everything got a history, where from they originate. So time is first variable. Time is first variable. At times we see the sunlight is available only for 10 hours. Other times it's available for maybe 8 hours. Other times it's available for 12 hours. Since it is not a constant, it's a variable. So very first thing, let's divide our word into two things. Something which never change is always same, that's a constant, and something which always changes is a variable. For example, your age is a variable, your height is a variable, that's okay, now it's not increasing, but in childhood it was a variable. Your weight is still a variable, your marks are variable, your income is a variable. Okay? Sun rises in the east, that's not a variable because that's a constant. For every single person, sun rises in the east. By the way, sun never rises. We are on a spinning planet, but it's okay because majority believes sun rises in the east, it's okay. But we have used that constant in making our watches, in setting our life in order. So that's a constant. So first thing is, please look for, we the human beings are always interested, we are damn interested in the concept of variable. We want our child to be healthy. I want to know what we should do. I know at least 10,000 girls who never ate any green vegetable. All they were taking were the snack foods, junk food. They just love it. But when they become mothers, they focus on the green vegetable and their child must eat only the green vegetable. By the way, they themselves were never eating that. So why it's so? Because we understand these things are important for the growth and the health. So there is a taste and at the same time there is a health. We know about these concepts. We want our kids to be intelligent, to be successful. Now, successful is not a constant, it's a variable, and we try to study the dimensions for the same. When we go to the organization, you find every single thing that is a variable. And we spend our lifetime in understanding how the things work, how to manage your boss, how to manage your PhD guide, how to get this ascent, how to get this. All are the variables. And mind it, just like you look for the human being, if I want to understand Arun, it will be really fantastic differently in the different scenario. Likewise, the same variable will behave differently in the different scenario. Arun, are you with me so far?
Yes, sir. I'm there with you, sir. Yes.
So let's say old recipe, you have already listened to all of this, but is it clear?
Yes, sir. I'm audible. Yes, sir. You are audible to me, sir. Tell me, sir, please.
Okay. So let's understand
Johnny.
the concept of research versus human bias with coining some terminology. I know all of you are either pre-PhD student, PhD student, faculty members, professors, but let's come down to a level, let's try to understand our human life and research from that perspective. So this picture denotes the perfect, all the life stages of a human life, and this is just like how the variables will be behaving. So left hand side, these are the things which we already know, and let's try to connect them to the right hand side thing. In our society, in our human life, we have a person at the center. In the research, we have a variable at the center. A person is related to other persons, and we call them as relation. Husband, wife, son, daughter, father, mother, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, so many relations are there. In the world of research, the relation is called as the hypothesis. So hypothesis is not something a rocket science. It's something like you say, motivation has an effect on performance. This is a hypothesis. Performance has an effect on motivation. This is also a hypothesis. And by the way, when A has an effect on B and B has a reverse effect on A, this leads to a concept called endogeneity. We will talk about it sometime. So people are related, variables are also related, that's called the hypothesis. People, they behave as per certain norms. Now you are in this workshop, you will behave differently, you will speak differently, you will act differently. But when you are at your home, you are a different person. Likewise, variables also have a perspective, and this is called as a theory.
Oh yeah.
We'll just glance at it, what is a theory. And this is a part which I feel most of us are missing, connecting with the theory. I think this simple thing happens to be one of the most important thing. When you write a paper, particularly in the very good journals, A and A star, they ask you for the theoretical foundation. Which theory says this, whatever you are saying. Then we say, well, we don't know which theory says. We have a number of studies. Having the number of studies, okay, but the underlying thing is the theory. So most of us have studied about the theory. If you remember organization behavior paper, psychology, we have a lot of theories, how the leader works. Ohio State theory, Michigan theory, Victor Broom theory, motivation theories, leadership theory. We have a lot of theories. It's not only in HR or OB. We have theories in marketing, in finance, in information system. Everywhere we have a theory. So theory means knowledge that these things, under these circumstances, the variables will behave in this way. This is the theory. Persons live in a family. So there is something called, this is my father, my mother, brother, sister, etc. When the variables are connected, this is called a model. So just like relations are there in the family, lot of hypotheses are there in the model. Let me take one example with that. Let me go back to my whiteboard. Arun, is this visible?
Sir, it is visible, sir. Yes.
So in a family, there are A and B. A is the husband, B is the wife. They have a son, they have a daughter. 4 are the people. So we can say these are the 4 variables. Now, interestingly, A is what? B is wife of husband, but A is not the wife. A is the husband. A is the husband of B, but B is not the husband. B is the wife of this. Surprisingly, this S is son to this, but D is not the son, D is the daughter. For B, this is also son and this is also the daughter. For this, brother or sister. Now, isn't it so wonderful? There are 4 people, but there are so many relationships are there. There's a husband, wife, son, daughter, brother, sister. 6 relations are there. Likewise, when I say here, quality has an effect on satisfaction. So we will call it as H1. Yeah, it's Bill Gates was such a rich person. From the last 10 years, Bill Gates is just giving and giving and giving. Except some of the time people believe in HR. Can we find out a new thing? Or it's the same old bottle? Beings are same from the last at least 3,000-4,000 years. We are the same. But the concepts are coming new. And those concepts we are trying to connect. And mind it away, here a technique is there which is very fantastic to connect the different fields, and that is called meta-analysis. Meta-analysis, what it does, meta-analysis is I have taken relation from the so many fields. Meta means when is Kamna want to ask anything? Yes, Kamna.
Sir, my question is, I'm doing my study in tourism, okay, in destinations and that. So I have studied many papers. Some papers say trust is an antecedent to the loyalty, and some papers say that trust is the outcome. When you are satisfied, then the trust comes. Okay, I have papers supporting both the things. Now, as a beginner, how can I, use one thing and give justification? Okay, I am using trust as an antecedent.
Okay. First thing is, these two are not contradictory. Satisfaction leads to trust and trust leads to loyalty. I think this is very clear. There is no, sort of contradictory things in it. But point here comes, Kamna. Are the scholars wise enough to give a study or something or their viewpoint? So it might be that Kamna or anybody, let's say some X person is there of 60 years old, but now start doing PhD. but the person know about the life, person know how the people behave and do the things and want to prove the same. So one is Kamna, our experience, and second, prove that empirically. Kamna, see, there are two bit in Himalaya, or you do in Antarctica or in the subtropical area. Whenever you do pressure, volume, temperature, social science, we work on the opinion mostly. There is a fact, there is an opinion. I will distinguish it a lot. Fact is, Abhay, do you have a mobile? Answer will be either yes or no. It's not an opinion, it's a fact. But how much you like a particular Bollywood celebrity, it's an opinion. That's not a fact, that's an opinion. And that opinion can change by evening. So in social science, we work on the opinion. Number two, opinions are largely governed by economic, socio-cultural factors. So there is no two people will have the same opinion about anything, not even in a family, not even a culture. So across the culture, the things will vary. And that's why we always go on working in social science, because we try to see whether this held true or not. So Kamna, coming back to your point, satisfaction has an effect on loyalty, loyalty has on trust. That's perfect thing. The point she raised, she says, how can I say it's an antecedent? You have to give at least 4 or 5 studies that these people have taken an antecedent, so I have also taken. That's perfectly okay. You show it. Only thing is, Kamna, you must have noted, in research, we never use the word I, me, myself. These words are not used. We say in the third person.
Yes, sir. But
the split is that if it's not me.
Sorry, sir.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. But my question is, I have literature that is supporting both the viewpoints. That means some studies say trust as an antecedent to satisfaction. Some studies say trust as an outcome. So in my model, my confusion is, where should I, do it, and what justification can I give if somebody asks me कि ये तो outcome भी हो सकता है, तो आपने ये क्यों लिया? हाँ, बस मेरा ये question.
Okay, so you spotted with the literature. My as we will commence, I will show you. You should take as actually both. You should take it as antecedent and this. Kamna, a variable is not only a dependent or independent, it can be simultaneously dependent as well as independent, and this is called a mediator. So you can very well take your trust as a mediator between satisfaction and loyalty. That's perfectly okay. We will discuss that point, Kamna, in detail.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So going back to Abhay's question, Abhay, I was replying, meta-analysis is a technique that takes the relation from the various fields and then you can connect them. So meta-analysis, the strength of the meta-analysis is it works on the secondary data. So like 40 people have done some studies. I will take their study and draw the conclusion. I will sum that studies and I will draw the conclusion even to those things which have not been done by any of this. I got 40 studies that A leads to B. I got 30 studies that B leads to C. I can combine all of this study, and on the strength of 70 studies, I can see whether B is a mediator of A and C. This is a fantastic technique, meta-analysis. This is part comes actually meta-SAM. Higher portion of meta-analysis is meta-SAM, meta-structural modeling. So that's a wonderful thing to meta-analysis is used to present as a gap. Why this study required? Abhay?
I've seen your videos, sir. जो meta analysis पे आपका पूरा एक group है, वो I've seen those videos and tried to learn little bit.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Now I would like to ask my friend Professor Brijesh if you would like to supplement anything, because some of the time I lack certain words or maybe some example. Brijesh sir, if you can supplement if I miss something. Brijesh sir? Okay, so we expect he will come back. Any other questions so far, please?
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Rachana.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have attended some of your workshops, but I couldn't attend the workshop where you discussed about moderating effect of any factor.
We will discuss today.
Yes, sir. My query, sir, with respect to Kamna's example, if I know the relationship between two variables, like one is IV, one is DV, and seen n number of studies which is talking about their relationships, but and there is one more variable also, that is suppose that is personality. Individually, there are different studies which are talking relationship between them. I want to study the effect of personality as a moderator between two variables.
Theory will come. And I was telling you, anywhere made by a particular college, this is University of Colorado, they said we are making a sort of a wiki page for let me write it into there.
Yes, sir.
Is it visible now?
Let me, sir.
Please, you may note it. is.theorizeit.org. So this is the theory on which this is the link where you will find almost 100 plus. This one. And one more. Initially, just like Kamna asked this question or Rachna asked that question, I will refer one more term. We have to work with INN. The second most important thing, first identify the variable and identify INN. What is INN? Internomological network. So internomological network is just like a family of the variables. What are the variables? Where the variables live in? So this is called internomological network, INN. That's a very important thing. It means like Rachna is saying that there is a satisfaction, there is a this. I want to include personality also. So there must be some literature where you will find that satisfaction is related with personality. Maybe not in the management, maybe in the psychology field, maybe in the some other field, but there must be some connection must be there. I will come to the questions of Kamna and others just a little late. So this is the page.
Theory or model में क्या फर्क होता है सर?
Sorry.
What is the major difference between theory and a model? Research model.
Okay. Theory and a model. See, model is simply a manifestation of the variables. This leads to this. This leads to this. Okay. This can be a model. Model can be anything. A lead to B, B lead to C. This can be a model. Model is simply, I call model as summation of all the theories. But so summation of all the hypotheses. But a theory means there has to be a knowledge base with it. There has to be a perspective. When we are talking from this perspective, these relations behave in a particular way. For example, you might take, just like Kamna mentioned, that intention has an effect on attitude and attitude has an effect on something. This is also possible. But theory of reasoned action will say, no, attitude is independent, this is a mediator and this is a dependent variable. They will behave in a particular way. This is called theory. Model is simply an interplay of various variables. That is called a model. Is this clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So theory comes from a particular perspective. You are talking a particular zone in the theory. One more source I would like to mention. I would like to introduce Dr. Sajid Bashir. He is from Namal University in Islamabad, Pakistan. One of a very wonderful person. He is doing a great job for the research community. He got this Facebook group. I think 2,000 people are there. It's a public group. And he often conducts free of cost workshops. He got wonderful publications and he takes free of cost workshops. And I attended one of his workshops. In his workshop, there are people from around maybe 40 countries or 60 countries, something like that. So, like some time back on 12th September 2020, he took the theories of organization behavior and their application. So, he worked on the theory of victim precipitation theory, belongingness theory, social interaction theory, all these 25 theories he discussed, only about the theory and how these theories can be used as a starting point of your research. He got a YouTube channel also, though on the channel he got very limited videos, but these are again wonderful videos. Doing literature review, how to publish in the top journal, how to write the PhD proposal, philosophy of the research. These are just wonderful lectures. You must subscribe to his channel, and in the Facebook you can join his group. Coming to the next part, review of literature, and that will answer some of your things. Most of us believe review of literature means, we understand review of literature as you just go on collecting the study, write some pages and pages about that, so 20, 30, 40 pages write about that, and then let's call it as the review of the literature. At the end of it, we have to write a paragraph saying, as is clear from the above, there exists a gap, and let me start my PhD. No, that is not the review of literature. That's more of collection of studies. So when you simply write study, this is the way most of the people write, that Gupta 2010 has done a study on this and concluded this. Singh 2020 has done a study on this and concluded this. This is not the review of literature. This is merely a collection of the study. So what do you have to do on the review of literature? Again, going back to our example of the social life, I equate review of literature with dating. Hope you have heard about the dating. In the dating, you just meet people of opposite sex. You spend some time with them and you try to just know the person better. The same thing is happening in the research also. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to know our variables in much detail. So first thing is, you have to find out INN, Internomological Network. So if Kamna is working on tourism study, I will ask her, okay, Kamna, tell all the variables. It's just like, if I ask Kamna, who are your cousins, name your cousins. So she will not think that, okay, my aunt and this is my brother, sister. It's on her tips. From the moment she was born to till date, she's very updated. She know all of their names. She know them in detail. Just like that, when you say, I walk in this area, and if somebody asks, tell the variables, you should not struggle after 3, 4. You must know that these are the 25 variables in my area, but I'm working with the 5 as of now. I'm working with the 3 as of now. That's precisely okay. So in the review of literature, it means we already have our variable. We understand they are just like our friends. And now what we will do here in the review of literature, we know our variable in detail. And there are only 2, 3 things which we wish to know in detail. What are the things? First thing is how to measure a variable. Is it a fact or an opinion? That's the most important point. If it's a fact, simple measure it. Like I want to measure the age. I will write age, fill in the blanks. What is your age in year? What is your highest degree? Which university you are enrolled in? These are the facts. That's not an issue. Problem comes when we deal with the opinion. And in social science, largely we deal with the opinion. And the problem here comes that whatever we, friends, let me share you one thing. Language is one way of expressing our thoughts. And that's not a very fantastic way. But this is the only way we know of. Have you noted that when you are extremely happy or you are extremely sad, you always fail words. You are not able to express yourself. And most of us have the tears in the eyes, in happiness also, and in extreme pain or extreme sorrow also. We are unable to express that. The problem with the opinion is, whatever effort you will do for measuring opinion, there are every chances you will go wrong. Still, we will try. Still, we have some common sense methods like reliability, validity, etc. How to measure a variable is one of the most important things. And the second thing is the variables. Which one is related with what? Like Kamna says, satisfaction has an effect on trust. Okay, you must write at least 5 studies for that. If you write more than that, it's okay. The most important point here is to be noted. Think of review of literature from the variables perspective. A majority of us think it from the perspective of the authors. We give a lot of emphasis on that Singh and Johnson has done a study on this. Parshuraman has done a study on this. Parshuraman is a very important person, but for review of literature, more important is quality, satisfaction, loyalty, trust. These are more important. Always think when you say satisfaction has an effect on trust, and these are the 5 people who have done it. Fantastic. If you write 50 studies, even then I will say it's the same thing. If you write 500 studies that stress satisfaction has an effect on trust, even then it is the same thing. So don't focus more on the number of studies, focus on the variable. It's all about the perspective. So there are few tips. Always write in section. So you will write effect of trust on loyalty. Let's write all the studies about it. Variables you know. And then every section is a citation. It will give you the link of that paper or details of that paper. It won't give you the paper. C category or even B category. Only A and A star. That's it. You can't go beyond that. Means every study you will mention has to be from A and A star publication only, not below that. That's a fantastic way to quality control, to maintain quality. So publish or perish. If you don't know about this utility, simply write on the Google publish or perish, or on the YouTube, you will find videos how to work on it, learn it. Publish or perish. It's a very good one. Number 2, write the study in the reverse chronological way. So latest study first, and don't try to write every single study, write the benchmark studies, which are really the landmark studies. So one thing I will mention here. There are the 2 ways. One is a novelty, and second is validation. These are the objectives of any PhD. Just like Abhay asked this, 10% of the people will give something very novel, which has never been there. If you have heard of one Professor Hensler, his student Florian, Dr. Florian, has given a new concept that is composite. I don't know how many of you have heard of this concept. There is something called reflective, there is something called formative. Hope you have studied that. There is a reflective construct, there is a formative construct. We will discuss that tomorrow. But Dr. Florian has given it altogether new concept. There is a third concept called the composite also. Now this is a separate concept, composite, and there is a confirmatory composite analysis also. But the point is, most of the people, they don't give the new things, they validate. This is a relation, let me check it here. Whether this relation will work here or not. Or just like Rachna asked the question, I want to introduce something as a new moderator. How can I do that? Yes, we will talk about that. But write only the landmark studies, not every study. Write only the landmark studies. So write the landmark study. 3 things, I think the 3 tips are more than enough. Write in sections, preferably focus on the variable, not on the number of the study. Every section must end with a hypothesis and write it the reverse chronological way. So some people believe you shouldn't write a study more than 20 years old. Some people say there are different schools of thought. Some will say no, write from its genesis, write the study which are very representative, landmark study. Some people will say write if you are publishing somewhere. So you must write studies which are published in that journal which you target. If you are writing in journal of retailing, then you must go through the previous issues of journal of retailing related to your topic, and all those studies must find a place in your review of literature. So these are the different schools of thought and different tips people will give you about review of literature. But this must conclude with a hypothesis. Okay. I have discussed this concept something in detail in this 3 video. I took this workshop in the month of September 2020. Research methodology, level 1, level 2, level 3. You can just explore that in detail. And likewise, theoretical foundation, something in detail about what is theory. So This is one, and let me conclude this first session by the need of the study. Need of the study, I will ask you, people will tell you there are certain templates available, don't waste your time. These are the 3-4 points everybody writes. The 3-4 points are, there are not many studies in your country, there are not many studies in India on this topic. The studies which have already been done are very old. This concept is very important, new studies are required. So people will say these are the things you should go ahead, copy paste. But I will ask you, this particular thing is need for the study. Particularly if you start thinking about writing for the A category. A category means ABDC, listed journal, or ABS journal. 5-star category or the A category journals, when you start thinking, your paper is accepted or rejected only on this basis, rationale of the study. Why one more study in this area? Why one more study? So many studies have been done. What you are contributing? So people have taken the same old survey call model and still publishing in the A category journal because they are able to identify this is a new thing which nobody has thought so far. So what do you plan to contribute? That is the most important thing. So missing gaps in the existing model. Here comes the point which was asked by Rachna. She says there is a variable A leads to B. It's been proven 100 times. She wants to take personality as a moderator. First, I will explain moderator after some time. But here, the point is, question here comes in your mind that should be a moderator. Why nobody thought so far? Why? How come you are the first person who thought this is the case? Okay. So here it means, are we going to a dead track? That means everything has to be first written on only then who will be the person who will write first? These are the people who are very experienced people. They don't require any review of literature. For example, when Manmohan Singh says something, any statement when Manmohan Singh gives, he doesn't require any review of literature. Manmohan Singh is an institution in itself. He is an authority in that area. So when he says something, people don't require. That becomes statement. I remember around 2004 and 2005, Aditya Birla gave a speech, and in that speech he said, these days it's very difficult to find the talent and retain the talent in the company. Aditya Birla said, the chairman of the Birla Group, Aditya Birla Group, that not Aditya Birla, sorry, Kumar Mangalam Birla. Aditya Birla Group, Aditya Birla has gone long. Kumar Mangalam Birla said that these days it's very difficult to maintain and find the talent in a company. And I remember in the next 1 year, at least 20 PhD started with on this topic of talent management. So these people don't require it. So these people speak from their experience. They know so much, they have spent their life there. So it comes from experience. So point here is, you must write it. So there are two ways. Either tell any theory. I'm again going back to the question of Rachna and Abhay. Either you write from your own experience. From experience that I know this is the case that happens in the Tata locomotive company. This practice was there and it resulted. Nobody has documented, somebody worked and this was the results. And then you work over it. One example of that is the microfinance. Microfinance, before it come into the theory, 2-3 people, they were of the opinion that you don't go with the huge loans, don't take loan from the banks. There will be some self-help group. They will give loan to the needy people. Needy people will work and then repay the money. Otherwise, there will be some social pressure, etc. And much later, it was developed as the sort of microfinance and the complete theories, etc. First, you have an idea, you work with the idea, you say what happens, and then you write about that. I think entire management starts that way. Entire management, we know that it's basically got a history. I always tell all my students, whatever is written in whatever book, it's not simply by chance written there. People have worked for the 30-40 years on that and then it is written. One simple example is Hawthorne's experiment. Those who have studied about the Hawthorne's experiment must be knowing that people say Hawthorne's experiment is the genesis of the HR. Before that, there was not human resources. There was only personal management. How it started? So there was a professor, Alton Mayo, who studied a paper, this was already published around 1928, that the working conditions will have an effect on our productivity. That was just an idea, just a thought, somebody wrote it. This professor thought of, well, that's an interesting idea, let me work on it. So he went just outside London to a place, Hawthorne. There was an electric company. He met the people there, took permission, and he conducted experiment for 6 years, 1929 to 35 perhaps. He conducted a variety of experiments, and whatever he has largely becomes Industrial Development Regulatory Act, 1948, called Industries Act. What should be how much should be the ventilation, what should be the conditions of working, how much should be the break time, etc. All are the part of that one. So when first you do certain experiments, you have certain idea, you work on that, and then it emerges as a theory. Later it becomes a theory. Or person has not done any experiment, person has spent the lifetime, and then person knows these are the critical area, and he says something that becomes theory. So in your case, when Kamna is asking, how should I take? Only answer is, since if you are not that much experienced, that your word is a statement in itself, in that case, you should always rest with the review of literature. You always mention, this is the review, I have found this review, and on the basis, on the strength of it, I will do it. The second question, why you have taken antecedent, why not consequences? Yes, it can be consequences also, but here, this is my limitation, I have taken it only that. Nobody will debate on that. Please look, let me tell you one interesting fact, Kamna. When you take a topic and in the topic you start working, you will find there are at least 30, 40, 50 variables. You start studying in the initial days, every single thing is a variable, this is a variable, this is a variable. You read a new paper, new variable will come. Another new paper, some new variable will come. All the time new variable will come. But how to consolidate that? So number one, when you go on reading and reading and reading, it's not like 300, 500 variable. There is no more than, for one particular variable, it's not more than 20 variables. Take my words. Actually, it is 10. One variable is not affected by 10 variable, and 10 will have significant. This I am saying on the strength of regression. What I am saying, a variable is not affected by 10 different variables. It is affected only by less than 10. They in turn will depend on something. For example, intelligence depends on maybe your genetics, maybe your exposure. Exposure further depends on something. Genetics further depend on something. It's like that, I'm saying. So at the maximum 20 variable. So if you found 20, 30 variable, so it means that particular topic is the agenda of your work for the next 30, 40, 50 years. It means you will work only with the 5 variable, 4 variable in your study. If somebody say, no, there are more variable, yes. And we also know there are more variable, and that's part of the next study. Nobody will expect that in your PhD work or in whatever work, you will take everything possible under the sky. Not possible. Not possible for one person, not possible for even 100%. So that's why people will start working. People will go on working. So take one topic, and one of the questions that's always asked, that is, what is the, now that your PhD is completed, what's the next agenda? And your answer is, I will do the derivative work. Whatever the limitations are there in my study, I will work on the limitation. I have taken this trust as antecedent, now I will take trust as the consequences, I will work on that part. When next time you will become the guide and a scholar will come to you, you have an agenda with you for the next 25 or 30 years. You know what your PhD scholars will work in the next, because you got all the variables. After 30 years, then you will become a specialist of that field. Today, whenever anybody coined the term service quality, they always start with Parshuraman, Berry and the Jethman. They worked only in the service quality. It's not that after some year they started working in education and then in the some other customer retention or CRM. No, they worked only in the service quality for 30, 40 years. So you also will work in one particular area, and that's who you will. So again, related with the marriage, I always ask this thing to the girls, whenever you are married and you go to a new family, how do you know the name of all the people? Like, are there certain tricks which girls don't share with others? How do you know so many people are there and so many relatives, their name, etc. And to the extent that particular person likes this particular dish and not that dish, etc. Girls are expected to remember that. So I asked this to some of my relatives, how do you remember? So she told, no, there is nothing like it. You meet again and again, you stay in touch, and then you get to know those people. Okay, that's why we have certain traditions. Traditions are a newly married couple will visit all the relatives. Wonderful concepts. So, because at the time of marriage, there are the 500 people. You don't know all of the people. You don't know the people on your side also. All the 250 people, you don't know that. So, what do you do after the marriage? The married couple will visit everyone, all relatives, one by one. I have seen the cases, the couple got the 2 kids, still some relatives are pending, we have not gone there. The point is, now you know them in much detail. The similar is the case with the research. You have certain variables, work with the 5-6 variables, and then with the passage of time, others and others and others, those 20-25 variables, I am calling them as internomological network. Internomological network means it's impossible you study about the trust and loyalty will not be there. Loyalty will be just around that. Trust is a very essential part for loyalty. For loyalty, trust is required. Trust automatically will lead to the loyalty. These are very integrated. So these are part of the network. These are the part of the network. So let's stop here. In the first session, I simply talked about you. I requested you. I urge you to think of the variable as a person. Wherever you are stuck, always look how we are doing. Our variables just mimic us. They just do just like us. The same power, politics, everything is the same. Absolutely same. Yeah, there are a lot of pending relatives which we'll discuss.
Couple of questions. Sir Arun here. There are a couple of questions. Would you take in this session, next session after the break?
Next session. We will take it in the next session. Let's take a break, quick tea, and you may log out or you may keep this link will be the same.
So what time we are meeting? 12 o'clock, sir? What time?
12 o'clock.
Yeah. 12 o'clock. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
बोलो पीछे मैम पीछे मैम अच्छी है यार इन्हें बोला ही नहीं वोट ऑफ थैंक्स ऐड आते हैं ना टाइम के साथ। मैम बोला नहीं आपने। एक बार मैम आप बोल तो देते, वो 12 PM पे दोबारा स्टार्ट होगा ना। सर ने बोल दिया क्या वी विल बी ज्वाइन अगेन? ओके मैम। चलो मैम फिर लास्ट में कर देना आप। कौन? मैम मैम मैं तो स्टूडेंट भी नहीं हूँ मैम यहाँ का। आप जानते तो मैम मेरे को। यस मैम, सोनू भैया के साथ भी लगा। कुछ भी नहीं हूँ मैम मैं यहाँ, मैं तो बस सीना सर की एजुकेशन। मैं तो घर पे हूँ मैम, घर से ही चला रहा हूँ। मैं बोल दूंगा सर के बिया हो पे, और क्या करूँगा। ठीक है मैम, ठीक है, ओके। पहले ही कर देना मैम, क्योंकि ना ये चलेगी 12 से लेके 1:30 तक। ओके ओके मैम, ओके ओके मैम, थैंक यू मैम, थैंक यू। थोड़ा सा बोलेंगे, थोड़ा सा बोल देंगे।
Can we build a model using 2 or more theories? So in the paper you can, sir, if you don't mind, can you share the screen and show it to them? Hello?
Yes sir, you can share the screen. Please go ahead.
Please you share the screen. I'll just give them the live commentary.
Sir?
Sir, Journal of Science Technology, Adoption of Digital Payment Systems, if we write on Google Scholar.
Okay. Sure, sir.
Yeah, so meanwhile, I'll explain the problem to the others who are asked the question. So all of us know that, India went through a demonetization in the month of, Narendra of demonetization actually forced us all to go into, just like how the corona pandemic is driving digitalization. So you can see. Sir,
Vijesh, my screen is visible?
Yes, sir. First paper.
Okay.
So actually, when you talk about the need for the study, sir, the PDF is there upstairs, sir. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. And sorry to bother you for that.
Most welcome, sir.
We can take them to the first page. Yeah. So you can come down just before the research question. So introduction, I explained them the context, the background of what is, so the need of the study Sapan was pointing about. So basically I set up the tone and the background that why we need to study digital payment systems. As all of us are aware that, India is typically a cash-based society. Our transactions have typically been cash-based. And, therefore, yeah, so you can take it a little down so that everyone can see before the research question, how did we develop the.
Okay.
So now what happened typically during that time, and digital payment systems, first of all, investigate in this paper, understand, because a digital payment system in 2017 was a very, very new concept, which was typically enforced on the population. They had no choice. So when this happens in any society, there are going to be people who are, what we call as early movers. And there are some people who are always the late current. So certain people would like to, jump onto the bandwagon and adopt it because they like. So now again, how would you like to explain this behavior? So in psychology and in information system, now digital payment system is an information system. So you can use different theories, like as Akash was talking about approach, orientation. So I can use TAM, I can use TPB, I can use extended TAM, I can use UTOUT 1, I can use UTOUT 2. I can use number of theories, Akash, and nothing would be wrong. Everything would be correct. But the question is there an alignment? Now, Akash, you can always say, sir, is this the only way? No. There are hundreds and thousands of ways to look at it. Like, for example, somebody can say, sir, if I would have used the theory of maybe some other theory like perceived trust, I wanted to check whether perceived trust, perceived ease of use and usefulness is there for digital payment systems. I want to study digital payment system from that angle. Yes, you can. Who has stopped you? Then frame your research. From the research problem, you frame your question accordingly, write your objectives, and now go for TAM. And in TAM, we have three, all of us know, we have perceived ease of use, perceived usefulness, which leads to behavioral intention. Along with this, you can also say that I want to understand the trust, because people have apprehensions whether this, my password, my username, and this would be compromised. So therefore, I want to study perceived trust. I want to study perceived security. So along with the TAM, I can add two variables, perceived trust and perceived security, and I can test it on behavioral intention. So Akash, that would be your orientation if that was your research question. So I hope I have, Akash, I am able to clarify your doubts.
Sir, sorry to bother you. I want to ask a question.
Yeah, before that, let me first finish with Akash. Is it okay with you?
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, fine. Yeah, now you can go on. Who was that?
Sir, Lina this side. Sir,
Yes,
as you said, along with TAM, we can add perceived trust and perceived security. So how will we measure that? Like for TAM, we have a set of questions. Our questionnaire is there. But what about perceived trust and security?
Thank you so much, Lina, for asking this question. I think this is maybe a question that is coming from many of the scholars who are actually, like all of us, we are all learning. So, when you want to do this, you have two ways, Lina. First way is, as sir said, you can go to INN, that is Internomological Network. You can get the ready-made scales for perceived trust and perceived security. This is one way of looking at it. What I would suggest is you go there and first get a brief preview of what exactly are the indicators or what are the questions that are leading to perceived trust and perceived security. And a better way would be always see the literature. When you go to literature, maybe like, I am doing study on digital payment. Somebody must have already done a study maybe on cryptocurrency or bitcoins or something else, Ethereum. In there also perceived security and perceived trust are important. So you can go and check those papers of information systems, how they have built a scale of perceived trust and perceived security, and you can pick up items from there also. I'm just sharing examples. It may not be true, like bitcoins and cryptocurrency in 2016 in India were very, very rare. I agree that. I'm just sharing an example, meaning that the point I want to drive home is very simple. Please look at the literature. The answer for the scales you will get is only when you read the literature. And you can go to Google Scholar and you can directly write perceived trust plus information systems. So maybe you will get perceived trust scale with respect to some maybe ERP system. You may get perceived trust with respect to some other system. So you can adopt those scales. So there are two things. You can adapt the scale or you can adopt the scale. When you say adopt, you are picking up the items as it is. When you say adapt, you are changing it to your context. So I hope, Lina, I have answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, can you please repeat INN that you said earlier?
Already, I think sir has put it in the chat box. Sir, okay, sir is opening it for us. Thank you so much, sir. Yeah. So, sir, if you put there perceived trust instead of failure, if you put perceived trust and say search, you will get whatever you want. Yeah.
Brijesh sir, may I ask you a question, sir?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, please. May I know who, sir?
My name is Arun, sir. My name is Arun. I'm from Mumbai, sir. So my question is about the measures, sir, and your model, sir. Now you have said that you have used reflective measures, but if you see the model, sir, I'm slightly not convinced. To me, it seems to be a formative constructs. So
Okay. I
understood.
This is asked to be by many scholars. In fact, I think sir is the right person to answer that because sir is also my guru anyway. But still, I'll answer it for you quickly. My dear Arun, this is just a model. This is not what I have fed into Amos or I have fed it into PLS. Now remember, when I study behavioral intention, if you see the literature, you will automatically understand that behavioral intention is explained by its indicators. So it is a reflective construct. If you look at performance expectancy and Utah theory, it is a reflective construct. The theory itself will explain what the construct is, what is its meaning, what is its type, and what are its indicators.
Okay, sir.
So when you draw the model, we draw it with arrows like this. But Arun, when we put it in PLS and Amos, the arrows will exactly reverse.
Okay. So I got it. One more clarity I want, sir. This dimensions to behavioral intention and to other the below one, I think innovation resistance. These dimensions you have created or this dimensions already?
No. Arun, that's a very good question. Thank you so much. Remember one thing, sir has already told, I am not a Manmohan Singh in information systems. I am not a Vishwanath Venkatesh. Okay, I am not a this one. So I am just a researcher. I have to follow the lens of the theory. So when you open Utah theory automatically says to explain the acceptance and intention of any technology, these are the constructs. Performance expectancy, effort expectancy, social influence, facilitating condition. This is not told by me. This is told by an established theory, that is unified theory of acceptance and usage of technology, which has been empirically tested and validated across different continents, across different demographies, and for different populations. And that is why I'm taking the theory to explain my phenomenon under study, taking those constructs along with its indicators.
Okay, Brijesh sir. Thank you so much for this clarity. Thank you.
Yeah. And Arun, we always as researchers have this small window where we can adopt the scales or adapt the scales. Whenever we adopt, we are taking it as it is. So you can directly give reference, Venkatesh et al. 2012, Venkatesh et al. So and so. If you go down to the, sir, can we show them the table so that they will understand? In my paper, it is there. Table of the scale. Yeah, that's it. So, Arun, I think this is the answer to your question.
Yes, okay.
So, you can see I have directly taken the scale, I have adopted it. However, in research, we always have, like you were saying, that nobody has done this study in this context, you just adapt.
Sir, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Sir,
Ma'am, just a minute. Arun, sir, any more questions?
No, I'm satisfied, sir. Thank you. This paper is really worth reading, sir. I will definitely read this entire paper. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. It is all thanks to Neeraj said that we are all learning.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, Ina ma'am.
Sir, can we adopt a single one or two constructs from the entire model?
Yes, of course you can. You can take only one construct, you can take two, you can drop one, you can drop two. But please remember, whatever we do, it is very important that we give a justification very, very clearly.
Okay.
And to do justification, you have 2-3 ways. Number one, you quote some previous studies in prior literature who have done it.
So the same context?
No, it won't be in the same context, right? If they have already done the study in the same context, then why will they take your study?
Yes, sir.
So you can say that.
What Ashish is doing.
Okay.
Sir, in AMOS, we can use one statement also, but for that we won't make the construct. We will use only directly box.
Okay, fine. I think, Neena ma'am, I think we have the right person. I think Neeraj sir would answer that. But yes, if you are using the scales, you can take the indicators directly from the scales.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
I think I'll hand it over to Neeraj sir. Sir, please take over.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I have one more question because some of the participants are very seasoned writer and they are writing for very good journals. Sir, since you are writing now for A and A star category journals, and sometime back you told me about the different methods of data collection and the concept of triangulation. So, would you like to share that concept with the scholars, for the budding writers and scholars?
Yes, surely. Sir, this paper, if you have downloaded the PDF, you can put it in the chat window. They can download it, or you can give them the link, the paper that I just discussed, so that they can read it for their reference. Yeah, so I'll take sir's question. Sir has asked again a very important question, which is very important. He's talking about the triangulation of research and basically talking about the mixed methods. Yeah, so to take this question, actually, all my dear friends here, see, we have the choice as a researcher because the study is ultimately of our interest, be it a PhD work or be it for publication. And we are obviously studying any phenomenon for a particular reason. Now, if you are going for A and A star, as just sir pointed out, especially most of us in our, typically when we want to go at an advanced level, we look at A and A star publications, and I think sir will also explain that, but I'll just share it from a very quick snippet, that whenever we talk about any A and A star category journals of ABDC list, nowadays it has become very strict and they will not take only one method of data analysis, like, only quantitative study. And typically, like nowadays, people are using a PLS, etc. For, typically we have a questionnaire, we float a questionnaire, we collect the questions, we analyze it in PLS-SEM or we analyze it in AD&Co or any of these software, and we put the results. Now, questions will be raised on many angles from the reviewers, typically in A and A star, because running one quantitative study or a cross-sectional study, how would you generalize that, first of all, in your demography, because you're studying it only over certain cities or certain states, or at the most one country, not a continent, not the globe. Second question is, phenomenons will always change over time. How you and me looked at a digital payment system during demonetization is very different how you and me look at digital payment system today. So therefore, reviewers will ask you this question, why should I take what you have done? So have you done a longitudinal study? Have you collected data from the same respondents over a period of time? Basically, what I'm trying to tell all of us is that reviewers will challenge the validity of your entire data collection itself if you take only one cross-sectional study, typically as what we do, especially for A and A star journals. So next question is, what is the way out? The way out is very simple. We have to use multiple sources for data collection. Step number one, how can you do that? A, you go for a quantitative study and simultaneously also do a qualitative study. So what we say in research is this is called as a mixed method. And how do we validate this? We go for triangulation. So the data that is collected from quantitative, typical example could be a questionnaire. You collect the data from the questionnaire. Qualitative, we have different options. Again, it depends. The most common preferred method is typically go for a interview or go for a focus group discussion. Collect the data again from those same respondents and or subject matter experts. Again, that depends on what is your study. Like, for example, if someone would ask me, how would you do it in my study of demonetization or digital payment systems? I could have went and taken, one side I collect the data from all the respondents who are the users who are using the digital payment systems. On one side, I can go and ask a panel of subject matter experts, typically some economists or some professors or some people who are at senior levels in the banks or in the economy, etc. Or people, typically at that time it was, I think, the Niti Ayog, what we call it today. So people who are involved in this UPI or, Niti Ayog, you call these like Dr. Amitabh Pant and all. So these people are the experts on that area. So I take an interview. I take a focus group discussion. I collect the data from them also. I collect the data from the end users also. And because data is coming from multiple sources, I now try to cross-verify. Now, this cross-verification process will help me to build the reliability in my study to a higher extent, and this is what we call as triangulation in research. So, are the subject matter experts, interviews or focus group discussions also telling us the same thing what the end users are? So, you will get many more insights in your study. So, this is what typically in an A and A-star journal, that's why you must have seen, my dear friends, we say study 1, study 2, study 3, or they do like typically longitudinal, or they do experiments. Like sir talked about Hawthorne's experiment, which is a very, the basis of the HR domain. So even today, my dear friends, either we go for experimental studies, or we go for mixed method studies where quantitative and qualitative are used, and then we do triangulation to check whether both the sources are trying to tell us the same thing. Because see, ultimately, my dear friends, in research, the aim is what? Understand the truth. We want to understand whether what problem we are trying to investigate, are all the stakeholders involved in that trying to echo the same thing or not. If not, why there is a gap, etc., etc. All this will bring more insights, and that is what A and A-star category people, journals are looking for. They want us to explore the depth of the ontology, the truth of the problem. So, if you are able to bring qualitative and quantitative together and do a triangulation, or if you are able to do longitudinal studies, or if you are able to do experiments, these are all different techniques that you normally will need, especially when you want to publish in a higher end journals like A and A-star. So I think, I hope I have done a little justice to your question. Obviously, you are the expert. I am just sharing whatever little I know based on my publication experience. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful explanation. If there are any questions, you may please ask. You can write that in the chat box. And in the meanwhile, I will request the organizers to allow Dr. Rajesh Shankran to present his screen. I will request Raja to please share his thoughts also on these questions, and if we have missed anything or any updation from your side, Raja.
Thank you very much for that, Professor Neeraj. I hope my voice is clear and audible.
Perfectly clear.
This is a normal statement we asked for. Okay. Yeah, I think what Dr. Brijesh has covered most of the points. I will just add on to some of these points. Probably what I'll do is I'll show my slide presentation. I'll walk you through some so that it becomes much easier for me to present it. I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah, it's visible, Raja.
I hope my screen is visible.
Perfectly.
Okay, perfect. So I have a few papers. The way the approach I did was I had a qualitative study, similar to what Dr. Brijesh mentioned about. I had first a qualitative study. The outcome from a qualitative study is what I have branched out into different quantitative studies, 3 different quantitative studies, and most of mine are into the digital payments. The first one, qualitative study, was to bring out some novelty approach in order to understand the rationale behind why consumers would adapt to the digital payments. Then followed by a quantitative study in which I've used the UTA UT2 with customization, followed by the next study on mobile banking, and also the last study on the brand equity. For example, the rationale what we could bring out is Paytm had a first mover advantage, whereas Google, which came in much later on, had much quicker adoption in the society. So what could be some of these reasons could be identified based upon the brand equity of those providers. So coming to the first part about the the question which was asked about the difference between rational objectives, research missions, there are various ways by which it could be represented, but typically I've used this as part of my research paper. I picked up from a research paper. I've given it the citation at the end on why customers make mobile payments by using the means and chain approach. It's a qualitative study, as I said, and this is published in Marketing Intelligence and Planning, which is an A journal. So the rational, research question, research gap, and objective. Again, all of this needs to be combined together in order to make sure that there is connectivity between each of these. So the rationale about why am I doing this? The research question, it's again based on the rationale. What kind of research gap, and then what are the eventually objectives of the study? I won't go into too much of details unless you've got any questions. There are various ways to represent it. I've represented in this manner. Some could also use it as a 4-quadrant approach in order to represent these 4. But typically, all this is what should cover as part of your introduction section in your research paper. Any questions on this? Otherwise, I'll go on to the next part about, a lot of you have asked about the theories, adaptation of the theories, extension of the theories. I will take one simple example and explain on that as well. Any questions on this?
Raja, is this paper available?
It is an Emerald journal. It is available. I've given the DOI as well. I will put it in the chat box also.
Thank you.
It may not be freely downloadable, if that was the question. Yeah. Okay. So, any questions on this? Oh, okay. What we normally look for is typically from the point of view of identifying some novelty in our research. Just to draw an analogy, a lot of you did talk about theories. Can I pick up a construct from a theory, or can I combine multiple theories? Whatever that we do, we would always look in from the point of view of bringing in novelty in our research. Now, please always remember this. There should be a rationale associated with it. If you see these folks and I say, okay, this is what my research is, of course it is unique. Does it make sense? It does not. So always keep this in mind about what you're trying to do as part of the study. It should convey a meaning associated with it, be it you call it as a theoretical contribution or practical implication. It should have some meaning associated with, not just for the sake of doing something that I have a novelty or a unique approach that I have demonstrated as part of my research. Okay. Now, what was mentioned was about the UTA UT2 model. So in this, if we look into the kind of extension that we can bring in, this is a model of what Venkatesh came up with in 2016, a UTA UT2 with these constructs on the left-hand side, and what we have are 3 different moderators, followed by what it determines is the behavioral intention of the individual, followed by the use behavior. Now, if I want to extend this model, how can I extend it? How can I add additional theories or constructs associated with it? So there are 4 different approaches. Again, these approaches are also determined or defined by Venkatesh in another paper of his in 2016. So these are, the first is having a new exogenous mechanism. So this means what it identifies is, out of these 7 different variables that has been used, the variables or the constructs that has been used as part of the UTA UT2, what could be the external predictors? For example, certain, I think you all are familiar with the concept of what we also talk on meta-analysis. There are different studies which are available in order to determine what derives performance expectancy. So you make use of all those and add on the different constructs in order to determine what drives performance expectancy, for example. So this is one way of doing it. The second way is to adding a new endogenous mechanism. So that means instead of these 7 predictors for the behavioral intent, I could add 8th or 9th or 10th. So I can extend onto this in order to determine how this could be done. That means what could be an additional construct that will derive behavioral intent. For example, what has been talked earlier is about the digital payments. One which is very relevant in digital payments is about the trust, because eventually there are financial transactions, and we as consumers need to ensure that whenever there is money or financial transactions involved in, we must. Somebody has a question or? Okay, so as a consumer, what we need to ensure is that we trust these service providers. Now, who these service providers could be? Anybody. It could be right from the point of view of the app provider. It could be be mobile by itself. It could be the network providers. It could be the different channels that the communication could go through in order to ensure that the payment is successful. And trust is a very, very important concept when we talk in terms of the financial transactions. So what I could add here as a new endogenous mechanism is trust. Okay. Then I could add a new moderating mechanism. So what has been taken by the model as the default, what the authors have validated worldwide is with gender, age and experience. I can have a new moderating mechanism in order to determine this. The fourth could be a new outcome variable. For example, I could extend this model in order to understand what is the satisfaction level. So I could do that. I have done it actually. I've done with another one for the brand equity, wherein I have used some of these constructs in order to determine the overall brand equity of the overall brand equity. So I can extend this in order to determine a new outcome mechanism as well. So these are the 4 different methods of extending an existing model. You can combine them. You can make use of a construct from other theories and then extend it across. Okay. Anything else you want me to cover?
Raja, there was a question from one of the participants. When you add something new as a moderator or independent variable, what sort of theoretical background you need to specify? How to go for that?
Oh, okay, perfect. So anything that we add on to, for example, I gave a quick one of trust. Okay, there are seminal papers. The first is whatever extension that we do as part of any model, be it combining a construct, be it combining multiple models together, we must have a rationale associated with it. And it should have a strong theoretical base. For example, if I talk about trust as an example that I'm using to extend this model, in order to make use of a construct, I should have a theoretical base. That means, how do I adopt this particular scale from where? So there are seminal papers associated with this. For example, Jeffen is one very famous author, which is predominantly quoted for trust, and that could be used in for. So anything that has been added on, please make sure, one, it has got a theoretical base, and second, that you're using seminal papers, and third, that it is something which makes sense whenever you are trying to adopt a particular construct by extending the models. It should not, if I refer back to the novelty approach of what I showed you in terms of multiple folks put together, so it must make sense.
That this workshop will occur.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, with respect to this moderator question, sir, my concern is you are asking we need to support it with theoretical support or something. But sir, then how this will be novel for us? Because I want to test this as a new thing which has not been done before.
Correct.
So sir, how will I get the theoretical support? Yeah, I can get many papers where this is used as IV in relationship what I am studying. Suppose I am studying relationship between IV and DV and one moderator. I am getting many papers where that moderator what I am planning to use is studied as a IV. So 2 IV on 1 DV. So can I say this ki this has never done before in A or A star general? That's why I am proposing this to be a moderator on this relationship. This is my hypothesis in my PhD study.
Let me put across that. That's a very good question, because normally whenever we start conceptualizing a model, this is one of the things that we normally look in for, whether something similar has been done before or not. Now, it is always based upon the richness of the study a researcher has gone into. For example, how many research papers that you have studied for. Now, it is not just a mere number. I'm talking about the quality of research papers that has been studied by a research scholar. It should typically, Neha, I think you need to go on mute. I'm getting a lot of disturbance from your side. Neha, Sharon.
I expect this phone tomorrow.
Okay, thanks. So one is about the quality of research papers, the number of research papers a research scholar has studied. Secondly, it should not be only within your domain. it should be across domain that you need to study for. I'm sure definitely you should get some wealth of information, and the time that you spend across, you should be able to get in one or the other context that has been used in. It cannot happen that though I might be doing in a particular context. When I talk about the context, it is a particular domain, a particular industry, it could be a particular country. It could have been done in other domains that you need to look in for on how and what they have done. To tell you frankly, with the number of research papers that we have got today versus what it was 10 years ago, and the growth of these research papers and the studies and the number of journals that are being published, it's tremendous. I can show some data associated with them as well. I'm sure in cross domain you should have had some of these. So my strong recommendation is, whenever you want to give any justifications or the rationale associated with it, please do study and search for information. You need to search from multiple things. What Professor Neeraj has given is a very a good shortcut kind of thing. Using that IN and Merin, you can quickly identify some of those papers associated with any of the dependent, independent moderators or the mediators and all. You can easily pull out those information. But meta-analysis is a second area. Third is look for very good papers in your domain as well as across the domain is what my recommendation. I hope that answers your question, Rachna.
Yeah, sir. Sir, actually, I am looking from last 6 months. My constructs are emotional intelligence and well-being, and I want to check the moderating role of personality over the same.
Okay.
I have gone for many journals like Frontiers in Psychology or top class journal, Individual and Personality Differences, and many more. Journal of Happiness Studies and so on. Sir, I didn't get any paper which is talking about moderating role. Sir, I am getting this rationale that when emotional intelligence and personality they come together, then they are changing the relationship on well-being. That's why whenever we are checking the effect of emotional intelligence on well-being, personality is taken as a controlled variable. Sir, can I give this rationale behind this? It means if personality is using as a controlled variable, it means it can be have some moderating effect or.
No, you're mixing up the concept here. Rachna, I'll stop you. Sorry for that, but if you give this kind of rationale, then the first thing that will come out is if somebody has used it as a control variable, how do you justify it to be a moderator? That won't work here. So do not give that kind of justification. See, different people would have always used it in different contexts in different ways. You need to look for the rationale which is associated for what you want to do for. Okay, I know it is not easy, but I can give you certain tips. Emotional intelligence and all HR area, there are multiple studies that you could have done. Some could have done in the industry point of view. Some could have done from the employees and individuals point of view as well, which are non-industry related as well. Some could have done, I've even looked into some of the studies that they have done in villages, in certain other areas. So the domain could be totally different again. And similarly, Rachna, if you want to look in for it, it's not only top journals. You should also make use of some of these like Web of Science databases as well as Scopus databases that has got wealth of information in it. Google Scholar, though it has become quite popular nowadays, but there are other domains that you could look in for as well. I know it's not simply saying yes or no, but there are different approaches you need to look in for. That's what is the job of a researcher, right? Simply if you get an answer, yes, you do this, then you'll be happy saying, okay, I've got this answer, yes, you go ahead and do it. But you need to have a rationale associated with whatever you mean. That's the crux of the whole thing. Every step you take, you need to have a rationale.
Sir, it means I need to search for the rationale. It might be in different context also. If I want to in IT, I can put rationale from manufacturing or other industry.
Yeah, definitely you can. Definitely you can.
IV can be changed in that case, sir.
Yeah, it's based upon your model that how you conceptualize for. So again, there are different experts within the domain. that would also add on to your knowledge. See, there are different approaches. For example, conferences that you attend for in good top colleges, again, top universities. Would recently there was this doctoral presentation in IIM Lucknow, and they invited for these kind of research papers, and they would have individual professors who will be allocated for your type of studies in order to give you some advice. So please make use of all of this. Do not go by only what bookish talks about. You need to explore the world in order to understand about how the research will go. It's not an easy thing, but different areas has to be explored for.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Yes, sir. Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please. So, Vidushi, go ahead with the question.
Sir, as your model you showed in the presentation, in that जितना अब तक समझा है कि every direction is a hypothesis, is going to be a hypothesis. And while collecting the data, like you also mentioned कि you will ultimately, lastly, you extended the model for some kind of measuring the overall satisfaction in your model. So
Right.
at that time also, when you will collect data from the people, you will also collect data with respect to satisfaction also.
Yeah.
So again and again you are collecting. We have
No.
to collect.
No.
Or once we collected.
Okay. Now, Vidushi, data collection part always comes at a later stage in the research process. The most critical part is your conceptualization of the model. And from the conceptualization is what then you draw your overall questionnaire. So the data collection, how you do it, is typically dependent on your conceptualization again. For example, if I go back to what I was showing here, how many are these total number of factors that I have? 7 plus 2, 9 plus 3 moderators. Now, if I extend it in all directions, for example, I've added something here. I add 1, so it becomes 7 plus 2, 9 plus 1, 10. Then I add 2 more here, 2, 12. 12 moderator I don't. Okay, then here if I say I add 3 more, I could have 15, 20 factors. Now, when you're having so many number of factors, there are different approaches to be done when it comes to data collection. One method is you say I've got 16, I'll take it easy for calculation purposes. I've got 15 factors on which I want to study my model. 4 questions per factor, so 15 into 4, 60. So that means when my questionnaire is being presented to a respondent, he or she will have to fill in 60 questions plus for demographics, like the name or gender, email ID, experience, or there could be various other demographic information. So if you look only from the factors point of view, 60 questions. You need to take a call based upon this. How much time is the person going to spend? There are, I think we'll take it on another day. I don't want to touch on that route. I don't know how much time we have, Professor Neeraj, on this, but that's another route, another considerations, rather, I would say, when it comes into the data collection part about should I go in one instance of collecting for all 60 questions put together, or do I split it into 2 different time frames that I want to collect them for? So that's second. Third could be based upon the conceptualization of the model by itself. For example, if we talk about service quality, there are considerations with respect to how do we collect the data. One could be before the service is consumed, and second is after the service is consumed. That would also be one of the considerations that we need to look at for. So there are multiple things. There is no easy answer for this, Vidushi. So everything will depend upon your conceptualization of the model and the number of factors that you have. And how much time. So eventually everything will translate into time. If it takes 10 minutes, 20 minutes for a respondent to fill in, definitely I will not. I will never spend so much amount of time in simply filling in anybody's, irrespective of even if I'm being paid for that or any incentives being associated with it, I will not. So there are different approaches to be taken into consideration while we do this data collection part. Maybe some for another day, as I said. I hope that answers your question, Vidushi.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Raja, we still have 30 minutes, and tomorrow we will touch a little bit about the data collection. So, hope you will be present there, and together we will share our notes.
Sure, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Something else you may please continue. You can discuss.
If there are no specific other questions, I'll just come into one quick one. So normally what we look in for, I think what Dr. Brajesh touched based on triangulation as one, there are many considerations that we look into whenever we talk about a research: credibility, dependability, confirmability, and transferability. And there are different approaches. I've given a quote as well here about the sources from Guba and Lincoln of 1986, which talks about the different considerations. Why I've hidden the right part is because this is something which I have done about how do I translate each of these strategies as part of my studies, what I've given in this. It's still not published, so I have hidden that last column from you. Otherwise, these are the different considerations which needs to be typically on the research part. We need to make use of this. Whether these are the only one, no. Again, there are many more such considerations. Maybe for another day. Again, there are different strategies associated with each of them that we need to look in for in order to make sure that how do we ensure that whatever data is collected for, it is the bias is minimized. And some that we do from the statistical point of view, which is fine. There are some which needs to be looked in much before we do the statistical analysis. That is during the research phase as well as during the data collection part. So all this becomes very, very critical from those perspectives. Okay. So I think that's all I had based upon whatever questions people have asked. If there are any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Any questions from anyone?
Raja, can you please share the link of your paper?
Yeah, sure.
We understand it's not freely available, but at least you can share the link.
I'll do it right.
Whatever the 2-3 PPTs you have shared, is it available somewhere, or can you share that also?
No, it's not. I'll see whatever is available. I'll put it across then.
Yeah, sure. And the second thing is, since this lecture is streamed on the YouTube, all the time they can come back and watch your PPT.
Oh yeah, this video. That's a good point. Yeah.
Okay, so Raja has shared the link of his paper. You can go to that paper and read that in detail.
If there are no more questions, I'll pass it on back to you. Professor Neeraj, I'll pass it on back to you if there are no more questions.
Thank you, Raja, for the wonderful contributions.
Neeraj sir, Brajesh here, sir.
Yes, sir, Brajesh sir.
Sir, there was, I think, one question, I think, which we have not addressed. I think that is the Bandhana Jain. She has asked at 12:18, what is the difference between model and theoretical framing?
Sir, your voice is not clear, sir.
I'm so sorry, sir. There is a question which has been asked. Am I clear now, sir?
What is the difference between? Please go ahead.
Bandhana Jain has asked that question, sir. What is the difference between model and theoretical framing?
Okay, model and theoretical. Yes, sir. Please go ahead, sir.
No, I thought if Raja sir wants to add others, I can answer. There is no problem.
Okay, you answer, sir. No problem. You can go on. Go ahead.
Okay. So, I hope Bandhana is there online.
whatever you want to say, please write in the chat box. There is a lot of noise from your end.
Sir, am I clear now?
Yes, sir, you are clear.
Yeah, so I'll just answer that question quickly. Bandana, there are three terms actually. You've written only two of them. One is law, second is theory, and third is model. So I think Shankaran, Raja Shankaran just talked to us about a very important concept of conceptualizing, or how do you go about theorizing. So, everything actually starts from law. The basics starts from law. Now, unfortunately, in social science, we don't talk about law. Because laws are... Sorry, sir, somebody's voice is coming. Yeah. Am I clear now? Yeah. So in law typically is coming under the domain of science. And when we say science, it's typically physics, chemistry, mathematics, where everything is deterministic. It is same for everybody, like Newton's laws, first law, second law, third law. It is fixed. Matlab, if you take an apple and throw it from a tree, it will fall at the speed of g is equal to 9.8 meters per second square. Whether you throw it in the Himalayas, or whether you throw it in the Pacific Ocean, or whether you throw it anybody, and whether Neeraj sir throws that, or Shankaran sir throws that, or anybody throws that, it is same. So laws are universally applicable. They are deterministic. They are fixed. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, we are in the field of social science and not science. So in social science, we cannot have laws, because how Neeraj sir thinks would be very different from how I think, would be very different from how Bandana thinks. So therefore, we can't use the word deterministic, so we use the word called as theory. So the moment when I say theory is something that we apply typically in social sciences. Social sciences, because the subjects are typically human beings. It is concerned with human emotions and human, opinions. So here we don't have anything that is deterministic. So we can't apply laws, we apply theories. So I hope, Bandana, the starting point is why theories, so you asked about. So theories are because every human being thinks differently. And to explain why every human being thinks differently, I think just now Shankaran sir talked about rational. Why do you think so? So what is behind that? What is the logic behind that? That is what a theory tries to look at or address. So theory of, TAM, if I take an example of technology acceptance model. So why do anybody like you and me would like to, look at a new technology? Because we are looking at ease of use, or whether we are looking at usefulness, is what the theory of what we call the TAM is trying to explain. So when you say theory, my dear friends, it's typically in social science and not in science. So it is typically, looking at a particular, investigating a problem using a fixed or a predetermined rationale. Okay, and it is not fixed, because how you think at may be very different from how others think at. That is the reason why we need to empirically validate all these theories. Okay, now from theory, the third term comes as model. So again, from where do you get these theories? Sir has already given us shortcut. I think sir is so sweet that he tells all of us the shortcuts. So the first shortcut he told us was about typically the Theorize It website. So there are a list or compendium of theories. Now, as Raja sir said just now, said that, today if you want to publish, you just cannot take any theory and publish any context. Like I wanted to study digital payment systems. I took one theory. I collected the data. I can't publish a paper today, unfortunately, because of the level of expectation from all the journals. So I need to add in an element of novelty or uniqueness. So how do I do that? So next question. So the simple ways, as people are trying to do it in research, I'm trying to make it again. Please pardon me for my language. A, we try to concatenate theories. So like, for example, just now we were talking about UTOUT2 in the context of digital payments. So, people might ask me, sir, why didn't you take price, value and habit in my theory, in my topic of paper? Habit is something that comes due to use over a long period of time. Now, digital payments in 2016 was something that was just introduced. How can we expect habit to be developed in 52 days? It's not possible. So I give a theoretical justification along with citing some very relevant and seminal papers which have dropped such studies of habit. So, you have to justify why you are dropping or why you are adding something. Like perceived trust. So in the context of digital payments, because the money is involved, because it is this, so people always have that question mark in their mind, apprehension. So to address that, we have trust. Again, you have to support it by seminal articles, literature, and by the latest articles in that particular domain. Now, so I'm coming to the point of law versus theory versus model. Now, where does this model come in? So whatever you are studying, whatever, like I'm talking about digital payments. So if you are studying phenomenon is digital payment systems, you have to come up with a particular model. What is a model? It's typically, put it in simple terms, a relationship between multiple variables. Like sir was talking about an individual and talking about a family in his presentation. So the same thing. So when we have these multiple variables who are trying, are either independent, dependent, moderator, mediator, exogenous, endogenous. These are all different ways in which the variables interact, or the way in which their role they play or they behave. So therefore, when you talk about a model, you are basically looking at a particular problem, like a digital payment systems, with the lens of a particular theory. And to add in novelty or uniqueness, we are trying to maybe drop certain variables, add certain variables which are context specific, and we are trying to come up with a model which should be unique and novel, which will try to explain something new, something more relevant in the current context, and which has not been addressed by many of the researchers in that domain earlier, or which will explain some wow factor. So what? See, one very important question which most of us will face when we get reviews is reviewers will always ask, so what? What is new in your model? Please explain. Why should I accept your paper, or why should I, take your paper forward in the publication process? So that so what question has to be well addressed. And Vandana, for that, when you are talking about the so what question, it is very, very important that you study the literature and you are either a subject matter expert yourself or get in touch with the subject matter experts to understand the insights. So the word that Raja sir used was rational. You need to be very clear why you are doing this study. And you have to understand that truth doesn't have one dimension. Truth always has multiple dimensions. So what are the different dimensions that you are able to, portray, or you are able to bring it out? That should emerge from your study. So this is where we have typically the difference between a law, theory, and model. I hope, Vandana, I have answered your question.
Yeah, I think I'll just add on quickly to whatever you mentioned in today.
Yeah,
since we're talking about the models and this, I thought this will be quite good to showcase about this. So what I think you all can see my screen, right?
Perfectly visible, Rajan.
Okay, perfect. So what we are here is the way if we talk about the theories and the models and all, a model cannot exist without the theory. So the base of all of this is based upon these theories that we talk about. The theories related to behavioral studies, psychological studies, social studies, and then theories related to motivation, theories related to persuasion models of psychology. And then there is another one which is an SLT theory, and then diffusion studies. So based upon all of these theories, there is different models that has been developed over a period of time. So that means the concept that we talk about are nothing but which explains some of these theories in order to understand about the consumer behavioral perspective, for example. So there are different adaptations. If I take multiple strands in here, for example, diffusion of studies talks about a diffusion of innovation in 1962. SLT talks about SET, and then there is another model for the NPCU. Then in persuasion, the theory of reason, action, planned behavior, technology acceptance. Technology acceptance is nothing but what has been a combination of the previous one, and then UTAUT, if we talk about, which was conceptualized by Venkatesh in 2003, was nothing but an integration of 8 different previous models. And I have given those lines in these red colored one. So what we talk about here today is about UTA-UT2, which is a further extension of UTA-UT, which was conceptualized in 2012. So typically a model has got a strong base with respect to theory. So the theory remains always the base for each. So whenever we adopt a particular model, for example, when I do a literature review, your literature review should actually talk in historical terms about how the model by itself was evolved, and then get into the empirical study part of associated. And this is a very comprehensive one which talks about, right from the different interdisciplinary studies of what these models are typically adopted from, and the time scale of when each of these models were introduced by different authors. Just to add on to, I thought that makes more sense in this.
Thank you so much, Raja, for value adding that. Excellent. Actually, to build that one map, I can understand he must have spent, I think, definitely a few years to build that map. It was a wonderful book. Just to add on to what they said, I think there was one question, I think, who asked by Leena, if I'm not mistaken, or by Akash, I think. That, sir, how do we know? Just like, we had Archimedes shouting, Eureka, Eureka, I got something new. How do we bring in this element of novelty? I think was one of the questions which was asked by one of them. And I thought I should address that. Not that Raja sir has not addressed it, but I just thought it to make it simple from a point of view of the scholars. See, like I'll share again with an example. Now, digital payment systems. This is something coming from a technology domain. So, first of all, look at an emerging topic. The easiest way to get a publication, my dear friends, is look at an emerging topic. Whichever area you may be, typically I am from a services and a marketing and a technology, I am a hybrid guy, so I look at all these domains. So first of all, look at an emerging topic, and second thing is that when you talk about novelty, I think Raja sir has very nicely told us that you look at it from an interdisciplinary or a cross-disciplinary or multidisciplinary angle. See, answers to the questions that we may be asking in technology, like let me share digital payment systems. One answer which is not answered by UTOUT typically could be perceived security. Now, but my dear friends, perceived security is something which is in a technical domain. So, when you talk in terms of novelty, it is not going to add much value. So, answers to the question of what I can add, like I think he was talking about, Professor Shankaran was talking about perceived trust. Yes, definitely that will add value. Now, my question is, from where did Professor Shankaran get perceived trust? Did God come in his dreams and told him take perceived trust? No, definitely not. It's basically when we read literature, please, see, remember one thing, my dear friends, in management, we never have it's not a pure domain. I call it as an applied domain, because ultimately, remember, like when I am studying digital payment systems, how did I get stickiness? Stickiness, for those who know, typically comes from the marketing domain. So, when you talk about consumer behavior, so look at constructs and look at literature of how people have tried to explain some, paradigm shift in the normal. So, stickiness is one of the very important constructs which came from psychology and marketing domain. So, what I'm trying to tell you all is, whatever problem or whatever research problem you are trying to address or you're trying to do in your study, answers to many of the questions what we feel that kisi ne nahi kiya hai, nobody has done this study before. I think that is very, very myopic way of looking at things. We should always look into some other, like, if I talk about digital payment systems, it's in technology domain. Look at something in psychology, look at something in marketing, because why? Digital payment systems has got a lot of implications for understanding the behavior, consumer psychology. So look into the psychology domain, look into the marketing domain, and definitely you will get answers to the questions what you thought have not been addressed before. So this is one of the simple ways, and obviously if you are reading the literature and following the literature very thoroughly, if you are doing a PhD study over 5 years, I think within 3 to 5 years, you will at least get a very, Professor Shankaran has shown a map. Now, I can understand he must have digged into psychology, behavioral studies, and so many other areas to build that map. Because on x-axis, I can see the timeline. On y-axis, I can see the domains. And you can see the evolution, and you can see the interconnect. Now, if you can build a mind map like this, or you can build a map like this will give you a substantial hold on the domain. But how can you build a map is you have to look at allied domains. You have to look at interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. So try to see, like for example, one of the topics I could just share with my friends, like what could be an emerging topic? Sir, I am in HR. What is new in HR? Obviously, there are so many things that are new in HR. Number one, future of work. Future of work, so what is new? See, today we are talking about robots. I think you all must have read the news that has come in the news. 3 million jobs are going to be slashed in the IT sector in the coming 6 months or 1 year. Now you will say, sir, iska mere research ke saath kya sambandh hai? What has it got to do hell with my research? My dear friends, first thing is read the article. Why are 3 million jobs going to go in the IT sector in India? Answer, robotic process automation. So read up, what is RPA? What is new in RPA? So next question, if you want to build a research paper in HR, you can think about what are the factors that will do the adoption of RPA in this particular domain, etc., etc. I'm just trying to give you all hints, like, how can you think about something novel? How can we think, see, no one is going to come and tell you, Eureka, Eureka, you got it. Or, God is not going to come and give us a pill, or you cannot get a pill in the market, a pill khali and I'll get a novelty. It's not going to work like that. Either you read the literature, follow the news, or you should be a good, many of us being research scholars are already having some basic knowledge in a domain of HR, marketing, finance. So you should know what are the upcoming things, what are the things, because see, when you talk from the point of view of publications, most of the journals want to increase their impact factors, want higher viewership. And everyone wants, what's new in your article? Tell me something which I don't know. So these are the type of questions that reviewers will ask you. So the easier way, I can't say shortcut, but an easier way would be to look at a problem which has not been, very deeply saturated or deeply investigated. Like, I'm sorry to say, service quality, loyalty, these are all topics which have been written since 1988 or 1985, since Parshuraman, Zitamal and Berry and Bittner. They have been doing this work for the last 30 years. So what gap would you get? It's a very saturated literature. So look at something, okay, can I look at service quality from some other domain angle? Yes. Now you are bringing in some new insights. So I think, my dear friends, these are the type of thoughts I just thought I should share these views with all of you all, because many of you all are asking very relevant questions, and I think we are all in this, we have all gone through this phase at some point or the other in our life. So thank you so much, Neeraj sir, for giving me the opportunity to share my views. And Raja sir, you are also absolutely awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vijay sir, for the wonderful explanation. Raja, there are a couple of questions. Would you like to address them?
Yeah, sorry, what are the questions? And I've looked into any of them. Shall I go to the chat? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Vidya Sagar Kumar, what type of research topics in the area of talent management? Okay. There are two ways. As I think Professor Neeraj associated with your model, so be prepared for that. And my recommendation is please do include it. It need not be a full-fledged model again, but at least some part of it is what you should be including as part of your admission process. I'm not getting into any sequence. If there are any questions, then please do let me know.
Yeah, Raja, there was a question at 1:20 p.m. by Dr.
Okay. 1:20.
Yeah.
I need to go back. Yes, please. Okay. Which question is it?
It says,
by whom? Sorry.
By Dr. Raksha Vasisht.
Oh, okay. I got it. Yeah. Dr. Raksha Vasisht. Sir, I have a doubt. If in a previous study, one variable was taken as a moderator, and in my model or study, I want to take it as a dependent variable instead of a mediator. Oh, sorry, not moderator, mediator. Okay. Then in that case, what should be the literature support of my model? Okay. Now, the mediator concept is different. In any case, as far as what we talk as a mediator is when you have, it is typically dependent on your model again. So the conceptualization that you do in for And so I don't think that's an issue, because whether it is a mediator or if you're talking about as instead of mediator you want to take it as a dependent variable, that should typically be fine. I don't think that's an issue for. Again, if I go back to the model that I explained it before, when I have an outcome variable, so as soon as I have an outcome variable, for example, I just mentioned about satisfaction, but satisfaction can also lead to loyalty. So in that case, there will be multiple paths, and then it will have multiple moderators. Each one of them could again be a variable again. So how your model is conceptualized will depend on whether you have a mediator in place. You all are familiar with
2 GB मैंने निकाल दिया वर्कशॉप 1.5 घंटे की 2 GB नेट पे फोन
So what is a telephone directory? So your citation should not become a telephone directory. As simple as that. To put it in a nutshell. Okay. So your citation has to be very appropriate. It should not be too less. It should not be too high. Okay. How high? As I said, a telephone directory. There should be always a balance between. Plagiarism is a different concept. If you have again, plagiarism also comes. Professor Neeraj has, so that should call in for a separate session by itself. So I would park it for the time being. But to answer your point, briefly, this is what I could.
I think yeah. So first, someone is asking for resharing my article. Sir, please put it in the chat window. Yeah, so you all can read these type of reports that are coming from, I'm just giving all shortcuts because Neeraj sir loves to, start it from there. So read the McKinsey reports, read the BCG, read the Gallup surveys or HR. I'm being very specific to HR because the question was tackled at HR. So, some typical topics which I can share from there is typically, you can talk about the gig workers because the scenario is changing. If you have, for example, robots or cobots in your team, how would you measure teamwork in such a situation? How if your subordinate or your boss is a robot and you report to him, how would you manage the talent? Because we say that talent management is crucial for organization performance. So Vidyasagar, there are so many questions that you can address. This is what I'm telling, if it's a publication, if it's a PhD, obviously the discussion is with your guide who is your supervisor. And to get novel ideas, I'm just sharing some shortcuts. Please read these type of reports that are published. I think it's published monthly, quarterly. Go to these websites, read these particular reports, and you will come to know what are some impending problems that the industry is facing. Or if you, in most of the colleges and most of the universities, a lot of industry interaction happens. So a lot of people from the industry, CEOs, CHROs, I'm talking for HR people, CTOs for technology people, CFOs for finance people, these people come and interact. So please listen to them. You will come to know what problems the industry is facing, and that will be a click for you. It could be that eureka moment for you where you understand, oh yes, this is a very impending topic, and maybe it's a topic which is very